So we are going to be talking about Brexit and the negotiations that have just started between the UK and its European partners, which are supposed to be over in 2 years' time, but in reality in a little over 1 year. We are really discussing what are the main issues and what are the main possibilities of an agreement. What are the issues that need to be addressed? I think so far there's been a lot of focus about sort of budgetary issues, which I think are fairly irrelevant, although one may be talking of some real money. But I think the real issues is what is the future trade relation between the two partners, trade in goods, trade in services, financial services as well, and there are lots of possibilities. Some are talking about having no deal at the end of the discussion, which would mean that the relationship between the UK and the EU would be on a purely WTO basis. Others are talking of much more ambitious deal, and whether that can be done during the time of negotiation, whether we will need an extra period, whether we will need a transition period, all of this I think will be the topic of our discussion.
So the priority of all negotiators right now should be to control damage, to limit the damage that will be done to both the EU27, their citizens, their businesses, and the UK, their citizens, their businesses. And therefore, I would urge the negotiators to refrain from posturing, and we've seen a lot of posturing in the UK, of course, but also on some of it on the continent. I'm not sure that this is very helpful. So let's get down to business. Let's try to negotiate a deal. But then, I would say as a Democrat, the best thing to do would be, let us ask the British citizens whether they are happy with these Brexit deals. They gave a mandate to their government to negotiate Brexit. Now, they must see the result and decide whether that result is what they want or whether they prefer, possibly, status quo. And if, just imagine, that the second referendum would end up with a majority of the British citizens saying, all things considered, we would prefer status quo to whatever outcome came out of the negotiations, the EU27 should be gracious enough and intelligent enough to say, okay, fine, you're welcome to stay. That is the ideal scenario. Can we get there? I don't know. But what I would say is that nothing should be done during the negotiation that would make that scenario impossible.
I think the most important thing is to get on with it. And we need to focus on the things that are achievable, not the things that we dream of. So we need to focus on what can be done between now and, let's say, the autumn of 2018, and what do we need to do to prepare for that. So I think we've talked a lot about complex, comprehensive free trade agreements and customs arrangements and so on. Fine, okay, but actually that cannot possibly be negotiated between now and September 2018. What is possible to do is to make the preparations for what will have to happen by March 2019. We are all still together in Europe. We have hugely integrated economies. We are close cousins to everybody else in Europe in the way that we think and feel, the things that are important to us. That's what makes it special. That is the basis of what can be a strong and special partnership in the future. So we have just really straightforwardly common interests.
Well, I think that people on both sides still underestimate the effects of such a large economy leaving the EU and building up new protectionist frontiers between the rest of the EU and the UK. And there will be very, very detailed consequences on the people. And I would like to make clear those negative consequences. Think about machines we build, big excavators. There are regulations that regulate safety rules on such excavators. And it took decades to make those rules common rules in Europe, so that when you you run an excavator, you can be safe what it does. So now when we have the UK going different ways from the EU, which regulations count? Will EU regulations still count in the UK, yes or no? Will there be different regulations? How is this going to be handled? There's an enormous bureaucracy behind that, and if the UK wants to build their own bureaucracy, it will be bad for all of us.